know. I just don't know. Baxter, today is Halloween. I have a whole horror-themed channel, a whole creepypasta-themed channel going on here, and I have nothing planned for it. Nothing at all. I haven't got a single thing in my brain. Do you have any ideas? Yeah, me neither. I mean, yeah, I used to do a video game channel, so I want to do something big and special, so maybe I can cover a creepypasta video game. Maybe I can do a review of Slender. You know, I'm sure a lot of people want to see that. You know what? I'm gonna give that a try right now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling this. I mean, so many people have covered Slender already. I've got to do something really big and special for this episode. It's got to be something that no one's ever done before. Something that no one's ever even heard of or seen before. But I just don't know what... What the fuck was that? No. Someone wouldn't do this. Someone wouldn't make a movie about this. No. That's impossible. Oh, this is just a Lion King. Oh, someone just put Slender on a VHS cover. Oh, screw that, I'm watching this. Let's pop this sucker in right now. Yeah, we're ready for a good time now. Yeah, this is seriously such a great movie, and I haven't seen it in so long. Man, this is gonna be a great Halloween night. I don't even remember what I was doing before. What the fuck is it now? Oh no. This is horrible. It's a floating shopping list. Yep, we've gone here, folks. This is a real movie made by real human beings. This actually exists. Now, this may come as a surprise to a lot of you, considering I'm typically a very negative person on this channel, but I actually still really like Slender Man. While his design doesn't really scare or awe me anymore, I like how his background and motives are still largely ambiguous. He's really a perfect boogeyman because of this ambiguity. I like his powers, they make him seem otherworldly and kind of intangible. When the protagonist of a Slender Man series is fighting him off, it really feels like they're going up against some kind of eldritch god. I have some problems with the concept of proxies, since I feel like they're a gateway into allowing lame OCs into your horror fiction. You know, for instance, look at Tiki Toby. But for the most part, at least in the big series, they're handled pretty well. Entry 18 of Marble Hornets still scares the shit out of me just as much as when I first saw it all those years ago. Most people have grown pretty tired of Slender Man, and for good reason, don't get me wrong. Ever since the game Slender came out, a lot of people like PewDiePie and Markiplier brought him into the spotlight, and so he lost a lot of mystery that once surrounded him. All that obscurity that made him so beloved among his devoted group of fans was gone. Then of course there were the stabbings that took place allegedly in the name of Slender Man, and for a lot of people, that was the final nail in the coffin. That's all it takes. It's a shame because he really didn't deserve to gain this level of infamy over such an ultimately mediocre game. But we're not talking about the 8 pages today. We're talking about a totally different Slender altogether. Slender the fucking movie. Let's get this show on the road. Slender Man is an almost exclusively internet-based urban legend, and it works just fine that way. Having a movie about him seems bizarre, it just doesn't feel right. After being so used to the short entries of Marble Hornets or TribeTwelve, a movie seems like a strange step to take. Slender Man isn't really a creepypasta, he's a boogeyman, an internet urban legend, so instead of something like Jeff the Killer, where you have to read the pasta to find out more about him, there's tons of information scattered all over the internet around him, not just one story. That makes it a lot more interesting to find out more about him to me. On the internet, everyone could be right or no one could be right, and you have all the time you need to learn as much about him as you can. You can't do that in a movie, especially one that could be directed towards a mainstream audience, which this movie obviously isn't. I honestly don't know who this movie's audience is. It follows some of the classic Slender Man lore, such as kidnapping children and impaling people on trees. Then it also has some screen tearing and video distortion of YouTube's Slender Man series, and even kind of hints to the theories of Slender Man being a tulpa. We'll come back to that once we get to that point in the movie. So on one hand, it feels like it's trying to appeal to fans of classic pre-8 pages Slender Man, but A, the movie is named Slender, and B, well, let's come back to B later, and let's just get into the characters for right now. These characters fucking suck. I honestly can't tell who our main character is, since it seems to be jumping between two of them, Dan and Joel. Dan is like this kind of boring, ordinary guy who isn't a ridiculous cunt, and he also finds the woman who sets up the plot of this movie. Joel, on the other hand, is an awful fucking person who is pretty much the driving force behind all of the events that happen afterwards. So, take your pick, I guess. There's also Joel's sister and Dan's girlfriend Jillian, who is also boring. Things happen with her later in the story, but we'll get into why they're retarded later. And then there's this other guy, Ryan, who just shows up like halfway into the movie. He's probably the most enjoyable character. He's a jokey guy, and in a horror movie, sometimes you want a character who brings levity to either lure you into a false sense of security, or bring you back from a scary moment, or to just kill off and make the audience feel bad. Aw, the funny guy's dead. I'm sad now.
I have our movie. I know what we have to do next.
Because that was boring as shit.
The character that's basically the driving force behind this plot is the woman named Millie. She's found by Dan rambling to herself like a crazy person on what looks kind of like the trolleys we had back in San Diego. She says her 2 sons were kidnapped and taken from her years ago, and that's how we get our movie. So, let's get into that now. Our story begins with what I mentioned just now. A shot of the woman Millie talking to herself on the trolley about her sons being taken away by a tall man with no face and tentacles. If you've ever wondered what the least subtle way to introduce your antagonist is, this is it. Also, I don't know if any of you have ever gone on public transportation, but this is something you see all the fucking time on the bus and trolley. I have some fucking stories about this kind of stuff. Like this one time, a dude just told everyone on the trolley he was going to read some of his poetry, and that's exactly what he did for like 5 minutes. Almost no one clapped or seemed pleased with it at all. It was pretty sad, actually. I couldn't even hear his poetry because the trolley was so loud and clanky and jangly. Another time on the bus, this lady was like, "Hey, you're 22, right?" when I was 19 at the time, and asked me if I drank or smoked, and then pulled a nondescript green pill out of her sock and offered it to me. I declined, obviously. Then there was the guy that smelled so fucking bad. Even the bus driver commented on it. Seriously, it was the most foul fucking stench I've ever smelled in my life. There was the kid who pissed himself, the huge black guy, really muscular, big tats all over his arms. He's carrying 2 giant-ass garbage bags that probably weigh more than I do with one hand, and then in this other hand, he's got a carrier of 2 adorable 5-week-old kittens. I've had 2 drunk guys who just fall right on their face when the bus comes to a stop. There was a lady coming from a baseball game handing out hot dogs to all the people sitting on the bus, and the guy with purple, necrotic-looking legs and shorts that you could see his nuts through. I could seriously go on for hours about the kind of shit you see on public transportation. What I'm saying is, this is a very mundane, everyday thing. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where the plot centers around the ramblings of a crazy person, except maybe Pick of Destiny. So then we cut to Joel, our primary cameraman, fucking around at Dan's bar, just filming people. He films Dan, Jillian, Dan's manager, and 2 people at the bar just sitting around talking. Like, yeah, the guy he's filming is being a creepy weirdo, but come on, man, that's rude.
Joel, did he tell you to turn the camera off? Did he turn you to tell?
So, like, until we get to the point where Dan films Millie going nuts, nothing fucking happens. Not a goddamn thing happens that affects the rest of the movie. Typically when you start off a movie, especially a horror movie, you start off with some establishing scenes that let the audience know what roles the characters play. This usually lasts for just long enough that we're given time to be interested in the characters presented before going to the scary scenario presented to us. What's important to note is that in any movie or TV show, we're given a lot of downtime with our characters. This is actually crucial to any story. Downtime can give you the time you need to get to know the characters and empathize with them on a personal level. It can give the audience a moment of levity that either gives them a chance to catch their breath, or more likely in a horror movie's case, lure the audience into a false sense of security, like what I was discussing earlier with the Rhiannon character. However, it's important to pace your downtime. If you spend too much time just dicking around, it gets boring. You have to spice it up with something really interesting happening every now and again. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because Slender is almost nothing but downtime. It is fucking stupid how much of absolutely nothing happens in this movie. This is something we're going to be covering a lot. You may not realize it because your brain is trained in such a way that you think, oh, this is just the expository stuff, we'll get into the good stuff later. When really the movie is telegraphing how fucking boring it's going to be for the rest of the ride. So let's get back to that. The only information we're given from these scenes at the bar is that Joel is an asshole who has an obsession with filming everything and invading people's privacy, and him and his friends want to shoot a documentary. Then there's the scene at like this restaurant or something, maybe a couple days later, and even though these guys are apparently dead set on making a documentary, they have no idea what it's even going to be about.
I want to see a documentary about excitement, car chases, robberies.
Call me crazy, but I think most documentaries come from some sort of drive or passion, calling attention to something that the public may not have known before, opening their eyes to something that was right in front of them all along. These guys just seem to want to go to Sundance or something. It's not very clear why they even want to make it, and it's certainly not clear what they want it to be about. After almost 15 straight fucking minutes of absolutely nothing happening, we're back to the scene where Dan meets Millie on the trolley. The problem I have here is that there's no reason the movie couldn't have just started here. You could have cut out the entire first scene and nothing would have changed. That first scene seriously just felt like the actors just happened to meet at the bar and ended up being like, yeah, let's put this in the movie. It's not like it establishes anything about our cast except what a weirdo Joel is. Something I'd be much happier not knowing about. So because they still don't know what to do with their documentary like 5 months later, Dan tails this lady and asks her what the fuck she's talking about.
For 5 years, I've been searching everywhere.
5 years?
People, he's just shadows. Shadows. He's got shadows like this. My God. Nobody will help me. Oh my God. Why do
Ma'am.
you have to keep pestering me?
Ma'am, I don't want to pester you. Like I said, I just want to tell your story.
I don't want to tell my story.
Please, ma'am!
As she explains this, there's a point where I thought I saw Slender Man in the trees in the background. You can see how I got confused. Especially since this is where the video distortion starts going nuts for the first time. This feeling of Slender Man being around? Don't get fucking used to this, I'm serious. I'll come back to this a lot later. So he goes to Joel after this and tells him this lady is what they're making their documentary about.
I found our documentary. I want to tell her story for one of two reasons. Okay, let's just say she is just completely nuts, you know? Like, I mean, she's interesting.
Yeah.
But
nuts is good. I mean, that's
nuts totally works. But on the flip side too, what if somebody really did kidnap her children and we could either help her find them or, you know, tell this story to, like, you know, heaven forbid it happens to somebody else.
Either she's crazy and they can just exploit her craziness, or she's telling the truth and they can either help her find her kids or help people in the future prevent their own kids from being kidnapped. Joel gets on board and they get ready to film the documentary. We cut to what seems to be the final product of the film, outrunning shadows. Or at least as far as they manage to get before the bullshit later in the movie takes over the plot. It's several short yet somewhat competently shot scenes of people related to the disappearances talking about the events that took place when the kids were taken. Honestly, if the rest of this movie was in this sort of format, it wouldn't bother me that much. It would actually be pretty interesting. I wouldn't mind a mockumentary about Slender Man. It could be fun. Anyway, the documentary details that the investigator being interviewed, Detective Barlow's partner, was killed during the investigation. And this upcoming scene is something that I have quite a few problems with.
You are a loose cannon sandwich, but you are a damn good cop.
Barlow's partner Williams is described as a young, idealistic cop who's personally affected by the case.
We'd only been partners for, well, about a year. He was young, idealistic, as we all were. He had good instincts. This seemed to really get to him. I think it's because he was young. He had a young family, young kids at the time, and so he took this case very personally.
If you haven't heard that one before, you haven't watched too many cop shows. As the detective is describing this, we're shown dashboard footage of Williams' last night. He's investigating the disappearance of a little girl at the time who briefly flashes in the back of the stopped car in the middle of the woods. Now we get to one of my biggest fucking problems with this entire movie, and that's the sound design. I seriously have no fucking idea what is going on with the sound in this movie. Slender Man affects audio as well as video, so it makes sense enough that audio should be distorted and fucked up, right? Well, what happens so often in the movie is that the soundtrack starts to play in the background where there should be no soundtrack, or at least where it doesn't make any sense. Like, are we really supposed to believe that these documentary creators put horror movie score over the video feed where this cop is shown dying? That seems really fucking tasteless, but with the events that take place later in the movie, that might honestly add up. Also, this is a found footage movie, so considering this is footage that was compiled after the events of this movie, who put it together? Who added the sound there? Was it the documentary makers before they released the movie? Or was it the people who ended up releasing it as this found footage? Anyways, then Williams goes over to investigate the car as voiceover tells us that he was killed in, officially, a car accident.
He died officially in a car accident, blunt force trauma to the head. Now, he was thrown from the vehicle.
But here's the fucking thing with that. You can't say what happened on the official records while at the same time showing video that is directly contradictory to what was written down. Williams is very clearly assaulted by a figure off screen. He points his gun at him and yells, "Identify yourself," so he was obviously not the only person at the scene.
Identify yourself. Don't move.
You can't just not take this kind of evidence into account in a murder investigation unless you're trying to cover something up. If the police are trying to do that, why release the footage and photos of his death? And if they aren't, then why are the records contradictory with the footage in the first place? Am I making any sense? Am I taking crazy pills again?
I'm taking crazy pills.
After the detective has said his piece, we get more awkward horror sounds and finally see what happens to Williams. Remember how I said, don't get used to seeing Slender Man? This is what I meant. Slender Man is not visible at all in this entire dashboard camera sequence. No flailing tentacles, no teleporting, nothing. Also, what the hell was with that noise that was playing while Williams was being attacked? Is Slender Man supposed to be laughing? See what I mean about the awkward sound design? So Barlow arrives on the scene and he has his windshield wipers going. When I saw this, I thought this was leading up to a cool shot where Slender Man appears in the background as the wiper comes down. Kind of like the transitions that sometimes happen in TribeTwelve. But no advantage is taken of this opportunity. The rest of the scene just kind of happens. We're finally shown some photos of Williams' body graphically impaled on a tree, so at least it's keeping that bit of classic Slender Man lore, but that's about the only praise I can give this scene. So after the police and teachers are interviewed, we cut to a ragtag group of heroes outside Millie's house. Also, those police and teacher characters, never gonna see them again. So we're outside her house, but wait a second. Who the fuck is this guy? Well, this
She's got like a body for like garage from all the other filmmakers that have tried to do it.
No, but here's the thing, like...
is Ryan. I don't know when the hell he came into the group. I don't know what his relation to any character is, but I don't care. He's here now and he's the best character in the movie. Anyways, they head inside the house and start setting up for the interview. Like, I don't mean they start interviewing her. I mean they talk for a few minutes about setting up the shots and makeup and shit.
Yes, a little powder, little.
Okay, let's set up.
We're gonna bounce a little bit of light off the roof. Onto the stairs.
Get this couch.
Don't.
All right, Millie, thank you again for letting us, come into your home and, kind of destroy with the lights and stuff. If at any time you feel uncomfortable, you can just say cut, and we'll cut, and you can gain your composure. But and those boys have been kidnapped. Is that correct?
Yes, 5 years ago.
5 years ago they got kidnapped. Okay.
They were abducted.
Abducted. All right.
They were very happy children. They didn't have fears. They were very outgoing. They loved being around people. They talked to everyone. So they never acted to me as they were scared of anything.
So when we met on the train, you had mentioned something about a tall, slender entity or gentleman who...
You have to understand that my medication, I wasn't on my medication like I'm supposed to be. I was transitioning from one medication to another, and I admit I was a little bit off.
I also hate the fact that they refer to the Slender Man as a slender being. She never brings up the word once, and they stick with this descriptive term for the rest of the movie. Anyway, she gives this really mundane explanation that she wasn't taking her meds like she was supposed to on the day they met on the train. So this entire documentary pretty much falls the fuck apart because this lady's explanation for what happened isn't completely nuts. It makes you wonder why they didn't just shoot this part first. I'm also wondering if the whole medication thing is a carryover from Marble Hornets, or if it's just used to give a mundane explanation to her irrational behavior. So they stop the shoot and Dan goes snooping through this lady's house in her dead kid's room. It's set up the way it was before they vanished, but the only thing of interest are drawings that feature Slender Man. He then shows the room to Joel and there's a fake jump scare, and we get another example of the amazing sound composition this movie has to offer.
Tall, shadowy, slender figure is after her. Holy shit! What? Ryan?
Yeah.
What is that horror movie sting when the shadow shows up? Who put that in? Then there's a cut to some footage from the lady's kids from 5 years ago, and as it fades out, you can hear the emergency broadcast system noise for pretty much no reason. Also, the way these shots are composited makes you think that Slender Man is going to be somewhere in the background. Same with the train station, but no, he isn't. It's like playing Where's Waldo, but Waldo isn't on the fucking page. So they finish up the shoot and leave the house, talking about what a boring waste of time it was. Even they know how boring this all was.
I have our movie. I know what we have to do next.
Because that was boring as shit.
We then cut to Joel starting up like a Skype or FaceTime call with the crew, and the whole layout here reminds me way too much of Unfriended. I honestly can't tell if they saw that movie as a source of inspiration for this scene or what. So Joel brings up that they've had to research the thing that's apparently kidnapped Millie's kids and ask them to come forward with what they found. Okay, now for this line here, I honestly can't tell if he refers to him as a slender character or as a slender character. You know what I mean? Like, listen to this.
So that we're all on the same page. I gave everyone a little bit of research on this Slender character.
Anyway, Dan says he found some ancient, like, wall painting shit with a skeletal faceless figure. Kind of like what you'll find if you're looking for Slender Man's origins on the internet. Then we get to Ryan's findings.
Ryan, let's hear what you got.
The best thing I found, I'll be honest with you, is this game. I've been playing it I don't know, for like the last half hour.
A
You
video
walk
game?
through the woods with like a flashlight, looking for paper. I don't know. I haven't found anything. I played the game, yeah.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? Remember when I said I'd get to B later? This is fucking it. I'm sure you're out there thinking the same thing I am. Why would you do this? So, it's very clear that he's playing 8 Pages, right? Well, 8 Pages was not only what skyrocketed Slenderman into mainstream fame, it's also based on the YouTube Slenderman series. So does that mean that those same series exist in this universe? Yes, they do!
All the videos I saw online, I'll be honest, they all kind of look fake to me.
No, all the ones I saw looked pretty unrealistic.
Are you fucking joking me? You haven't even shown Slenderman in your movie, and you have the gall to call the Slenderman YouTube series made for free unrealistic? Seriously? Is this for fucking real right now? Am I still taking crazy pills? What, and you're also telling me that in this universe, where 8 Pages and Marble Hornets exist, and Slenderman is clearly an established internet urban legend, that this was all the shit that they managed to come up with in their research? It was like Christmas time when you held that interview with Millie, and it's January 2nd now, and this is all you have? I looked up tall faceless man on Google myself, and I got nothing but information on Slenderman. There's pictures, information, everything you need to know is right there in front of you based on information you've been given, and you've been playing the fucking game? Christ. Anyway, back to the story. Jillian has looked up shadowy kidnapper and found a bunch of pictures that have basically nothing to do with Slenderman. So we can conclude that everyone on this project is absolutely useless. Joel brings up the fact that anyone can be a victim of Slenderman, you just have to believe he exists.
Let me tell you what I found. In my research, I found out that anybody can be a victim, and all that is required is that you believe.
Which I think is based on the explanation that Slenderman is a tulpa. After this, we see movement in Jillian's background and have another fake jump scare.
The girl's father was found with a blank look on his face, his shirt covered in blood, and the only words he could keep repeating were, "No face, no face, no face." All trials and court procedures were suspended as Jonas was sent straight to the mental facility upstate. Now, the only item they found on this guy's person happened to be this photo.
Is this for real?
Get used to these. Aside from one, they're the only jump scares in the movie. And then we get to the crux of the movie's plot. This is what everything comes down to.
We were talking about our next assignments, which this was perfect. This was perfect setup for it. Jillian, I need you to actually make a costume that Ryan can fit into. We need him to be in costume, and Dan, I need you to find the boys' school and get us permission to film there after hours. Because
wait, really quick.
Okay.
I understand why I should be getting the school to film at, but why is Ryan getting in a costume? What does that have to do with our documentary?
Because we are going to scare the shit out of Millie.
Wait, are you being serious right now?
Deadly serious.
Yes, this movie is leading up to the equivalent of a retarded, tasteless YouTube prank. But holy shit, how fucked up is that? It's not like this lady has done anything wrong to these guys. And it's not like she's just some crazy hobo so it doesn't even matter. Hell, even if that were the case, I'd still feel a little bad about that. Like, imagine there's a hobo who's always on your bus talking about how he can always feel spiders crawling under his skin. So one day you and your buddies throw a bunch of Halloween store spiders on him. Like, that's fucked up, right? Even if they're not real spiders, you're still freaking out this random dude who clearly has a thing about spiders. Except imagine if this dude's kids were killed by giant spiders. How much fucking worse is that? So you might be wondering what Joel's motivation for switching from documentary to YouTube prank is. Well, it's very simple. This is now a documentary about fear.
It's become a documentary about fear, and I want her to feel
I
the fear that she showed you on the train.
Fuck you. Ryan thinks it would be hilarious and is totally on board, but Dan and Jillian are really uncomfortable with it, as they should be. But they just kind of go along with it anyway, for no real reason. It doesn't even take much convincing, they're just like, hey, you're the director, you do what you want. So then we cut to a scene where Ryan is being fitted for the Slender Man suit, and it's now that we finally realize why this Ryan character suddenly showed up. He's tall and skinny, so they're sticking him in the Slender Man suit. Dan and Jillian talk about how uncomfortable they still are about this whole idea, and this is like 3 months after it's been proposed to them. They've had time to think about this.
I'm gonna send this to Joel, but in all honesty, like, what do you think about this idea? You've alluded that you felt a little awkward about this.
I do. I feel bad. Like, her kid is missing, you know? And
well, not kid, kids.
Kids,
both
sorry,
her sons.
Kids. I know. I've tried bringing it up to Joel, but this is not like...
Joel doesn't want to hear anything.
He
I mean,
thinks it's a great idea. And
well,
I
you
love
know,
him, but...
yeah, you know your brother. Like,
Yeah.
he gets his mind set on something, and that's it. Like, I really still would like to do the documentary on it. I think there's something here. Like, I would like to help her. I would like to, you know, tell her story.
And then Ryan walks into the room in full Slender Man attire and starts boogieing on down. Okay, and then something weird happens. This happens earlier too when Joel is discussing his plan, but it's way more noticeable here. When Ryan is explaining his lack of apprehension to the plan, as it seems like he's saying the word Slender Man, his voice garbles. Again, it happens to Joel too, and it's the only instance of audio distortion in this scene.
Isn't that what Joel said? The whole thing is to provoke a real response from her. So regardless of whether or not she's on meds, if she turns around and she sees us standing there, we're gonna get a real response.
So, he cannot hurt you unless you believe in him. It's sort of a catch-22 to actually make a costume that Ryan can fit into.
So like, could they not get the rights to use Slender Man's name? They don't refer to the game or YouTube videos by their names either when they're discussing them. Now, Slender Man is copyrighted. Victor Surge, the creator, holds the copyright claim on him. So, with clearly almost no budget and seemingly no rights to use Slender Man, how was this movie even made? I don't have the answer to that question or any questions like that. They're clearly using Slender Man's image, so they must have gotten the rights somehow, right? Maybe the name thing is just to try and keep it subtle, but it's doing a bad job at it, so it's really distracting. So after they discuss their feelings on Joel's plan, we cut to fucking October. And Jillian now has blonde hair for some reason. With how they just randomly introduced Ryan as a major character, I was totally prepared to have this be a completely new character. I was honestly wondering if we had actually gone back in time since I hadn't been paying attention to the dates on my first watch through, both because of Jillian's hair and because I didn't think that they'd actually have the gall to call what they're doing a prank, and thought they were just referring to some earlier thing they were doing before they even started the documentary.
Joel wants me for the prank to, carry a camera around.
But they are. All pretense of this being an experiment for the sake of fear in their documentary is completely gone. So for the third fucking time, they talk about how they don't feel cool about doing the prank when Dan sees something outside. I was honestly kind of excited for this scene. It reminded me a lot of the Marble Hornets entry where Alex's girlfriend is filming him right as Slender Man shows up. But as it was happening, there was this nagging thought at the back of my brain. That's Ryan playing a prank, isn't it?
Opening the blinds.
Hey, please open the blinds. I can't see. I need to find the fuse box.
It's not even bright enough outside.
Yes, it is. Just open the blinds.
Yep. So if you've been keeping track, that is at least our third fake jump scare this movie. And those are the only scares we've had. I skimmed through the movie again for the review since there's so many long scenes where nothing happens, so I might have missed one or two. Anyway, the promised hour has finally fucking come. We finally get to the day of the prank so we can end this fucking movie. Except the whole thing takes like over 20 minutes, so we're really not even close yet. We arrive at our scene on November 11th, and anyone who's watched TribeTwelve knows that's a significant date, so I'll give the filmmakers that much. If they did it on purpose, that is, it's a nice homage. So a huge portion of our time here is spent setting up the prank. We're shown Ryan putting on his stilts. We're shown where he's going to come out of when he scares Millie. All that stuff. Now this is clearly setting up for something, right? It's setting us up for when the prank obviously goes wrong, Ryan is killed or something, and the real Slender Man finally makes his appearance. We get more weird sound design here since we can hear the sound coming out of the headphones, but they're on this guy's head. Hey, wait a second, who the fuck is this guy anyway?
You haven't? Why are you so grumpy all the time, eriF?
I stood up.
Oh, I guess this is eriF. We're in the final act of the movie, and it's still throwing new pointless characters at us. So Dan hears something down in the hall and takes Joel with him to check it out while Jillian and Ryan talk in the room. Everyone's been having weird dreams lately, but that doesn't make sense because Slender Man has had no presence in this movie so far, and no one seems to be buying his existence. He hasn't been following or tormenting them, they haven't seen him, he hasn't done anything, he hasn't even shown up. So they get ready to set Ryan up after dicking around, but Jillian is freaking out after hearing literally nothing. Like, with the bizarre sound design in this movie, you'd honestly expect the audience to also be able to hear things that almost no other character can hear. They just kind of ignore it and test out how Ryan looks before calling Millie. Joel wants Dan to call Millie because apparently she trusts him, even though they've only interacted like twice. Once when she was off her meds on a train. So Joel, like a fucking asshole, tells Millie to come down to the school because he has a lead on what happened to her kid.
Hi, we interviewed you about a year ago. About your boys, yeah. Well, I didn't want to let your story go away. I still wanted to tell it. So I've been doing some digging and, well, I'm down here at your boys' old school and I may have found a lead to what happened to them. I can't tell you over the phone so much, and you need to come down here as soon as you can. Thank you. Bye.
Jillian is understandably pissed at this and threatens to just tell her what's really going on like a sane person. So even though they're completely fed up with this asshole's bullshit, they're talked back into it after he gives some little fucking sob story about how he's put everything into this and how it's all he has left. It's a fucking prank, you Kevin Smith looking cunt. Anyway, Millie finally arrives and walks into the school. Apparently they either have security cameras set up or somehow got access to the school's security cameras. She walks through the hallways until she gets to the spot where Ryan is cute to scare her and the lights go out as she screams. They run out to help her only to find Ryan caught on the railing somehow. They ask him where Millie is, but apparently they've run right by each other and Millie has now vanished. They look everywhere for her, but there's nowhere she could have gone. As they're searching for her, they even actually say it was a prank.
Millie! This is Dan and Joel and Ryan and Jillian. Come out, please. It was a prank. We're sorry.
Like, you seriously may as well call this movie Slender. Prank gone wrong, gone sexual, with like 3 check marks in the title, because that is what our fucking climax has come to. Jesus Christ. So they're trying to figure out what to do when the lights go out and they hear footsteps blazing past them. They decide, in Scooby-Doo fashion, to split up and look for clues. I mean Millie. Jillian is freaking the fuck out and for the rest of the movie dips in and out of this like catatonic state. Why Jillian is the one most affected by this is a fucking mystery to me. Like, she basically had no presence in this movie prior to this freakout. Joel and eriF check outside, but her car is still out there, so she hasn't left and must still be inside. As Dan and Jillian keep looking for her, Jillian's condition gets worse. I think this is supposed to be what Joel was talking about earlier, how it only affects you if you believe in him, how he's a tulpa and shit, but again, why Jillian? They keep going and we see something outside a door or window or whatever that is, but I have no idea what it is. For all I know, it could be Dan's reflection. It sure as hell doesn't look like Slender Man. Jillian runs off after hearing a noise that, again, only she can hear, but now we can also hear it.
Frank, where are you going? Hear what?
If you were to take shots for how many times the sound design pissed me off in this movie, you wouldn't be able to drive home tonight. So Eric comes and talks to Joel, and again, we get more of this weird headphone shit. They're on his head. We shouldn't be hearing what he's hearing. After Joel finishes searching the classroom, he looks around only to find Eric is missing too. Oh no, and not him? Then it's back to Dan and Jillian's wacky adventures. It's more of the same until Joel finds them and asks where Eric is. Turns out Ryan isn't around either, so it's just these three losers. Then the lights turn off again and Jillian screams and runs away. They run after her but can't find her, mostly because Joel thought it was a better idea to grab all the audio equipment than help run after his own sister. Eventually, after arguing for a bit, they find Jillian hiding in a janitor closet, and then this happens.
Jillian.
Is she gonna turn around and scream or something? Come on.
Hey.
Or is she already dead?
Jillian. Hey.
What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Her mouth was like Neo from the Matrix. Is she turning into a Slender woman? It's so fucking stupid. And what is the implication here? Her eyes went blank and she lost her mouse. What, is she turning into a Slender lady? Does he do that now? Is that established? Is that part of the mythos? What the fuck ever. There's like 5 minutes left of this trash. Joel seems to be the only one left after Dan also vanishes, and Jillian is left to be a Slender lady or whatever just happened. He wanders around for a little while in some long claustrophobic hallway shots that would be perfect for Slender Man to show up in, but no, there's just video distortion. He then walks into a classroom and finds Ryan's Slender Man costume totally unoccupied. He places down the camera and starts to break down crying. Probably because his year-long planned prank just killed all of his fucking friends and his sister. We then finally get to the end.
No. You're not real. You're not real.
You're not real. You're not real. You're not fucking real. You're not fucking real.
No, I'm serious. It just fucking ends there. That's the end of the movie. That's the last scene. We did not see Slender Man one fucking time. Can you imagine that shit in any other horror movie? What if we never saw Buffalo Bill, or the shark from Jaws, or the Xenomorph? Shit, can you imagine any movie doing that? Where the main antagonist is the driving force of the film and you never see them? And what a weird fucking note to go out on. He isn't attacked by anything, he isn't killed, there's no jump scare, it just fucking ends. Now you'd think I'd be happy with a modern horror movie not ending on a jump scare, but I'm not happy with this shit. Man, what to fucking say about this movie? If I had to describe this movie in one word, it would be, without question, boring. Honestly, guys, this movie isn't even worth watching to have like a bad movie night with your buddies. It's just really fucking boring. I had no idea what to expect going into this movie for the first time. Maybe something that could be decent. Maybe something that was fun and cheesy. Maybe something that would be great to laugh at. But oh my god, this was just nothing. I almost feel like I didn't even watch a movie. I cannot get over the fact that these people with the budget to afford all of these cameras and actors couldn't put in the main fucking monster of the movie. I'm gonna get the obvious out of the way and say that this movie had no business being a Slender Man movie. If it didn't have the pretense of being a Slender Man movie, if it took out all of the paranormal shit and made this about a group of documentary makers who dig into a case on some serial killer, this would be a much better movie. Like, the acting in this movie is actually pretty solid.
Did he turn you to toe?
There's rarely times that I was taking out of it. It all felt really natural. I can't sing the praises of the cinematography because not only is this found footage, but it's found footage that doesn't take advantage of that fact. Like, there's so many shots in this movie that perfectly set up for great scares, but they all fizzle out. Not to mention, a lot of the shots in this movie are shot on like an iPhone or something, but it's vertical. For fuck's sake, I do shitty YouTube videos, and even I hold my iPhone sideways when I record videos. This movie is like a fucking firework that didn't go off. The pieces are there for a decent movie. You just need a much better script and a better fucking sound editor. Jesus Christ. I'd say this is worth watching for me since I had some fun making this review. But yeah, don't bother with it yourselves, especially if you're still fans of Slender Man like me. I'm content waiting on new episodes of TribeTwelve and Everyman Hybrid myself, so it's not like I'm starved for content anyway. I mean, yeah, this wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen or anything. In fact, I probably could have gone with something a lot worse for my Halloween special. Like, I don't know. I mean, what's something a lot worse I could have gone with? What the hell is this? An apple? Oh, yeah. Oh, man. You know what would have been a lot worse than this? Happy.
We've been on the run, driving in the sun, looking out for #1. California, here we come, right back where we started from. Hustlers, grab your guns, your shadow weighs a ton, driving down the